Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, he is, oh my God, I was about to call him a returning guest, and I just realized he's not a returning guest because he hasn't been on this. No, he hasn't been on this podcast before, which is insane to me because I've been on his podcast and he's been on another podcast of mine. But this is actually the first time I get to say the words Matt Brooks, who covers the Brooklyn Nets for Nets Daily. He's amazing. And he joins me right now. Matt, how are you? What's going on? What's new? Anything?
Not much, you know. That beautiful basketball season we were banking on to get through what's been another tough start to the year. We're working through some things. I think that's the best way to put it right now. So the journalistic work on everything that's going on with the NBA and the COVID protocols has been really great. Like there's been some really insightful stuff, but the actual season has been a little bit of a disaster. So I think that's kind of the best way to summarize my life right now.
Well, I'm going to, like I just told you, I'm going to record a little intro before this podcast, but I'll just say for posterity's sake, we sit here and we record this on Monday afternoon at 3:00. Folks are going to hear this early on Wednesday or sometime during Wednesday or whatever.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe by then
we might not have a season.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I forget. I just retweeted it before. I should know who the heck tweeted it out saying that under consideration for the NBA right now is a 7 to 14 day pause. I think the wording was. So,
yep.
We got two more postponements tomorrow, the Pelicans Mavs game, and I think Bulls Celtics. Yeah.
Yep.
The Knicks have had their issues. COVID, oddly enough, has not been one of them.
Yeah.
Can't say the same for you guys. But as we sit here now, these two teams are going to play a basketball game on Wednesday night. So we are going to talk about some of the things that, because look, it's Knicks and Nets, and it's interesting.
It's fun this year. It's pretty fun. I'm excited for this one.
Well, if somebody, I'll be honest. If somebody had told me before the season, when the two teams meet there, they will have combined for 10 wins, I would have been like, fuck, we got off to a goddamn 2-8 start. That sucks. I would have really loved to get maybe a third, maybe a fourth win. What would your instant reaction have been? I'm assuming something along the same lines.
I'd like to say, in the moment, I've been kind of surprised by the Nets sort of stumbling in certain spots. They have that terrible tendency so far to show up for games against above 500 teams and not show up for games against below 500 teams. I think that's really indicative of not good things. At the same time, probably one of the 2 million takes I've had over the last, year, because
that's
this
it.
Year is
you're low.
I know. All that time, I only got 2 million takes out. But one of my many was I wouldn't be that surprised if they got off to a slow start just because of how many moving pieces they had or have and are still having. And by the way, I did not factor in Kevin Durant, missing time for health and safety protocols. So It's not necessarily surprising, but I mean, look, like, I think there's some things you can glean from the team so far, and I don't think it's awesome stuff personally.
Well, I want to get into some of it. But before we do and talk about if this is a rivalry yet, I don't think it is. And, actually maybe briefly get into some game stuff. It would be disingenuous of me to not bring up the name Kyrie Irving. And I'm going to choose my words very carefully here.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get canceled. Listen, cancellation happen every day. To the best of us.
Got to watch it.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say. I think mental health is a very real, very serious issue. I've been in therapy at some point in my life. If I had more time, I'd probably still be in it. I think it's very important. I think mental health days are important.
Yep.
And I say that as a person who has just about every privilege under the sun, because I'm a white man. I'm not a black man. I don't care how much money he has. You can't put a price on what it is to exist in that skin in this country right now.
Yep.
So I want to get all of that out there at first. And then if I'm being honest, I'm looking at the situation and I'm like, but God damn it, life is hard. And it's hard for everybody. I'm sitting here right now. My daughter's on her iPad in the other room. I'm hoping she doesn't come in here and like interrupt this podcast. My wife is about to walk in from a ultrasound that I couldn't go to that appointment with her because we're in the middle of COVID and I'm teaching virtual classes. And, it's like I could go on and on, as could you, as could every person listening to this podcast. Okay. I just wonder if I had to cover the team, the Nets, how I would feel about this, and if I would be able to put like how I would deal with my own personal feelings about shit, man. I wish I could take a few days off and just kind of be like, you know, honey, I just need some space right now. I'm going to go, I need a couple days in Cancun. I can't do that. You can't do that. Most people can't do it. Kyrie Irving has done that. Do you, as a person who has to cover this team, has that been tough for you to grapple with, or like, where are you at?
I'm I don't want to say unique, but I do think maybe compared to so I'll put it this way. Last week, I don't know how many people that are listening know about this. I was pretty active in the protests this summer. Like that was something I was passionate about.
We've talked about this.
Yeah, we've talked about it quite a bit. And I don't want to get too much into, I don't really mind delving into specifics. Last week was really, it was a triggering thing for me.
Yeah.
Look, my job is to come here, talk about, how if teams are over switching and all this stuff. They played, I think it was Wednesday and Thursday. I was glazed over. I was like sitting there watching these games. I was like, this is so meaningless. Like, this is one of these weird weeks where I love this. Like, it's not like me, I think that's where I can kind of agree a little bit with Kyrie. It's like, I love basketball. It's never an issue with that. But there are weeks where it's like, man, we're really watching 10 guys on 20 guys combined shoot a spherical object in a hoop. And that's what we're doing. And I think last week was
as the American experiment collapses onto itself.
Exactly. And it was tough. Like personally, like watching everything that happened and how we had an insurrection with very little pushback. Yeah. And I think when you, especially for me, and I'm sure other people feel this way. I know Kyrie was very active in this. I know Karis LeVert was, many other players in the league. They go through protests. You hear about Sterling Brown, somebody who is quite literally physically abused by police. They go through all this. They see all these things over summer. There's, tanks rolled out. There's, unmarked vans taking people in. I think just that compared with what happened last week and just how grossly unprepared we were for something that was realistically an attack on our nation's capital. I get if that was triggering. So I get it. And I think everybody reacts to that at different speeds. I think me personally, I didn't feel like completely normal until yesterday, which was Sunday. So I think, for everybody, they're going to react differently. For me, I'm just kind of worried if he's doing okay. Like, what is this trigger? What is this, if that's something he's passionate about. So I get it from the side of like, especially if you're looking at this being like, okay, well, he's missing work. He's paid to do this job. I get that. I totally do. But I think when it becomes an issue of, look, Kevin Durant said our prayers are with him. Like it's little things like that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a step back. And I think that is something where we need to evaluate. So my opinion right now is I actually don't have an opinion until he speaks personally.
You know what? That's the responsible thing. And I think more people, including myself, should err on that side.
It's tricky though. I can't blame you because honestly,
I'm just being honest.
Is going on.
Because look, we could do a whole podcast about the things that are going on in the country. Yeah. We're not going to do that because that's not why people tune in, and I respect that. But I think there are. I guess my only thing that I wanted to say is I know, especially in this city, which has a mentality of like. Which is not necessarily a healthy mentality. But that is not a healthy thing to have that New York mentality. Like the world could be burning down around me. I'm going to trudge on. That's a New York mentality. Not a healthy one, but it is the mentality of this city. And you want to, talk about Brooklyn and like the ethos of what it really means to be part of Brooklyn. Like to me, when I think of Brooklyn, that's what I think of. It's like, doesn't matter what's standing in my, so I just wonder, again, that's why I asked how you're dealing with it. I wonder how some of the fans are what their opinions are of it. And I just know from the last thing I'll say on this, if this was a Knicks player doing this, I would feel so conflicted because I look, as everybody who listens to this podcast knows, I look for every excuse to be on the side of the Knicks player. I will
Me too.
uncover every rock, right? So I don't know. I felt like I wanted to address it before we got to anything else. So we've addressed it. Of
course. I mean, the thing, like, I get it from both sides. I think, and I'm also with you on that. I get it from his side. I get it from people that are upset, that are, sitting here much like everybody else, kind of watching everything and still forced to go to work and all this. So I get it. It's just a tricky situation. I don't know if there's anybody right. And, just kind of waiting to hear from him.
Yeah. And I'll be curious what he says when he gets back, whenever that is. On the court, as you were saying, you guys have struggled a little bit. But at the same time, last I checked, actually, I didn't check after yesterday's game, so I imagine it had gone down. But I think you guys were the third best net rating in the sport, maybe fourth. And then now I would imagine it's still somewhere in the upper half of the top 10, but maybe a little bit lower. Is it just as simple as, you know what, we're not taking this as serious as we need to be? Or do you think, with the losses that you've suffered, obviously Dinwiddie's gone, Durant is now back, Irving is out. Like, is this just like a manpower thing? Like, basically, I guess what I'm asking you is, should Knicks fans expect a close game on Wednesday if the Nets collectively make a decision like we're going to come to play and try to win this game? Like, in your opinion?
I don't know. I think the Nets, based on everything we've seen, I think they'll show up, and I think they'll take this game seriously. But I think, outside of maybe this Knicks game, I think there are like some problems that you have to monitor with the Nets. I mean, it's just, I don't love the roster makeup. I just don't. In the same way that we, clowned you guys for having 1 million power forwards, the Nets have like 25 sort of like one-sided 3-and-D players. And it's like, it's a weird roster. It's all guards. It's just, I don't know. I think that's a real long-term problem. And, the way that they're using them hasn't been especially, I don't know. I don't know how much you've watched them. I've checked it today. They've ran 2 zone possessions so far, which fine, whatever. They're mostly switching, which is going to take a long time, long time. Okay. And honestly, in a season with COVID where you have guys missing left and right, the idea of doing a switching defense where you kind of need to know everybody's tendencies, you need to know where, some guys like to switch when they are at screens. Sometimes some guys like to, hang back in the paint a little bit more. Like a Jared Allen, for example, is going to be somebody, or DeAndre Jordan definitely wants to hang back in the paint a little bit more.
We've seen that show on this side of the river.
Oh man, it's a show.
It's a show.
It is a show. But yeah, I mean, all of these moving pieces going on, and I don't know. I have a couple of questions about it. I don't think Nash has done a good job at all. I don't think he's done a good job.
Oh, you don't say.
It's early. Yeah,
it's early. It's very early. Okay.
But not at all. So it's just like, those are moving pieces. The roster doesn't feel right. And I don't know. It's been some issues from the bench so far. Okay. In terms of leadership from the coaching standpoint.
So it's weird. It's interesting. It's weird to talk about Nash because I feel like for now, the better part of when did the Kyrie? Yeah, this has been 5 days. For the better part of 5-6 days, whatever it's been, the focus has been on the Kyrie issue and off of maybe some of the decisions. But there's been some interesting like lineup choices in terms of like the starting lineup too, like where there's been some different ones. I guess. What I'm wondering at this point for the Knicks, again, I don't know how much you've watched us. The issues are obvious for anyone to see. They can't score. They really can't score when Julius Randle is in the game. Teams are daring them to shoot, and when they've made shots, they've done okay. When they move the ball, they do better than not. And then on defense, when Mitchell Robinson's not in the game, it turns into not what you want. So, talking about just, I guess, with you, because you brought it up, the Nets defensive scheme, I almost wonder if they're going to try to like simplify things for like this game, because if you play a simplistic, like, look, we're not going to let you get in the paint against the Knicks, that's been working. But, at the same time, I have they had any like outstanding defensive performances this season? It feels like the answer is no, since maybe the very beginning of the year.
First 2 games, they were great. And then they've had a couple of good. I'm sorry, my dog is barking like crazy. You might have said
okay. No, listen, when you talk about the Nets defense, I think it elicits very visceral reactions, both from mankind and the animal world. I don't blame your dog at all.
Well, my dog's not a big fan of switching. And so here's the issue for you guys. And, you say, okay, well, they can't really, the Knicks can't really shoot. The Nets just played the Thunder, who are, everything you say about the Knicks.
As did we. Yeah.
10 times, like it is 10 times worse with the Thunder. They have nobody who can hit an outside shot. And the amount of points in the paint that the Nets are allowing right now, because they are having somebody like Jared Allen switch all the way out. And then they're low men in every single possession for the Nets. It feels like it's Landry Shamet. It's a Joe Harris. It's like these guys that like, realistically, what basket protection are they providing? Even if they slide over perfectly, I mean, look, like Joe Harris got short arms and is a good defender in front of guys, but he's not a rim protector. Neither is Landry Shamet. So you have this defense that allows these, shots inside. They've been terrible about giving up boards. And I think it all comes down to this idea of running a switching defense. It's a really sexy idea in theory to have Jared Allen coming out to the perimeter, contesting guys. He's improved a ton, no doubt. Problem is you don't have the roster behind him. That backline protection just isn't there. So I actually would worry for the Nets' sake. Like, I think Julius Randle is going to look great. Who's going to stop him? They don't have anybody who can match up with him other than Jared Allen.
Well, that's been. See, your dog's making noise. My wife comes in.
We got the cameos left and right.
Listen, this is podcasting in 2000. This is podcasting in 2021.
I don't even get nervous anymore with the dog. I'm just like, I'm sorry, man. Like it's, and I never leave. I'm probably bothering this poor creature. Like
you're doing fine. You're doing great raising him. Randall. I mean, look, we've been singing Randall's praises over here. Pretty hot and heavy, and because it's been warranted. And he's been making the right play, and when he needs to take the offense on his back, he's been doing that, and it's been working. I mean, there's no other way to say it. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I'll be curious to see who they put on him to start the game. Who's your starting? Is Kevin Durant your starting 4-man right now?
Started at the 3 last game. They put it was God, why can't I even remember? Karras, how many games we've had? I just don't even remember. They've had like 7 starting lineups.
I know, but that's what's crazy.
They've had Karras, Joe Harris. So Karras at the 1, Joe Harris. They had KD at the 3, Jeff Green at the 4, Jared Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of Jeff Green. Look, I mean, people seem to be really enamored by Jeff Green. And like, yeah,
people are always enamored with Jeff Green. 12 years the guy's been in the league. Always people enamored with Jeff Green.
And like, I get it. Like, yeah, like he's still the like in theory guy, but there are like possessions defensively where I'm just like, I just don't know. I don't know if this is going to fly. And it's like, he's been pretty good for the Nets too, but no, I think that the weird thing for this game is that it's these two teams are just kind of the opposite of one another. So you mentioned that the Knicks are better with Mitch in, and they're going to protect the paint. Well, the Nets don't pressure the paint. They just don't.
Hold on. Not yet, because that's the other caveat. Yes, when Mitch is in the game, the defense is a lot better. But even when he's in the game, because obviously NBA teams are smart, they're figuring out ways to pull him out of the paint. And when that happens, it's like you were describing before with you guys, there's no backline help, because Julius Randle, for as many wonderful things as he does, offers about the same amount of rim protection as Landry Shamet or you or me or your dog.
Right.
So
question for you. You have cleaning the glass, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. So I looked this up recently. We've hit the nerdy part of the podcast. Also, I love that I'm interjecting and just being like, all right, let's talk about cleaning the glass.
I want you to do this. Is great. This is exactly why I have you on. What are you wondering about?
So, cleaning the glass has the like shot location.
Yeah.
I guess effective field goal percentage. Are the Knicks still like in the bottom 5 in terms of shots allowed?
Well, they were in the bottom 1 or 2 last time I looked, and I haven't looked that much of late, just because I hope this doesn't sound arrogant. I don't feel like I've needed to because the eye test is just so very clear. It's basically there's two games happening. There's the game that's happening when Mitchell Robinson is not playing, right, which is there's just no deterrent whatsoever. I mean, Nerlens Noel, I mean, I had to laugh. He just switched agents. I don't know if you know this. Okay. And the agent, his new agent, Chris Gastone, is a great guy. He's been on this podcast. Put out a press release earlier today calling Nerlens one of the best rim protectors in the league, and he does have some nice block stats. But man, nobody's afraid to go in the paint on him. And he's had a few nice blocks, but he's just with the other pieces that are surrounding him. Maybe that's more to do with it because you're dealing with your Kevin Knoxes of the world, and Emmanuel Quickley's a rookie, and it's just like there's no deterrent. When Mitch is in the game, unless teams get super creative, and that's the other going to be interesting thing is I wonder how much they put KD at the 5, because you want to talk about a way to jam up whatever little good the Knicks have been doing, which is their defense. Put KD at the 5 and see what you could roll with them, because then it puts Mitch in an impossible situation. What is he going to do? And I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm curious to see if they actually go for it. I mean, but I feel like Nash has been going to that occasionally, right?
I don't think he's done it enough. Like, honestly, like it's weird. It's like they want to play centers, which fine. That's makes sense. I actually think there's a world where they should be doing that a little bit more. They've been reluctant. Like they've sprinkled in a little bit Jeff Green at the 5.
Okay. Like Houston did.
I don't know if that's a huge advantage. Like I really don't think they've leaned into the KD at the 5 just as KD, and because it's not like this team's stopping anybody. Like honest, they're just not. I mean, and it's like, so I don't know.
By the way, New York is second from the bottom right now. Location effective.
Are they?
Percentage. Yeah, it's not
interesting.
Yeah, because they're allowing a ton of shots still at the rim, and they're
corner threes.
The corner threes is the only thing they're kind of taking away. They're 18th in the league at corner opponents corner 3 frequency. I mean, here's the thing: Tibbs definitely knows. It's clear what they're trying to do. It's just a matter like they'll give up an above the break 3 anytime you want it, basically.
Sure,
but it's the other part of it. Yeah.
Are you buying it? The hot start. I'm personally not. But I will admit you've probably watched way more than me, because my general NBA consumption this year is extremely down.
Well, as what we were talking about before.
With the schedule.
Yeah, no, it's making life impossible.
Yes.
I'm buying aspects of it. I'm buying Randall. I'm buying the defense.
Randall. This is crazy because I don't even know, when you came on my show, I don't even think we talked about Julius Randle.
Well, because we just assumed like, okay, he's a placeholder in the starting lineup until Obi Toppin's ready, and then they're going to figure out what they could get for him and ship him off. That was the thing. No, I'm buying it because, as I've said on the show over the last few weeks, he's not doing anything he hasn't been able to show the ability to do before. Yeah, this is above the next stuff, and Tibbs has him bought in. And he has all these guys bought in. That's the thing that I'm buying. I'm buying that the team has bought in. I'm even last night where they just got their doors blown off by Denver. Like they were kind of in that game, and they're really shorthanded right now. And they hung around until the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth. And I'm kind of buying the defense. I don't think they're going to stay 29th in opponents' rim or shots at the rim frequency. I think the
Nets will help you guys with that. They do not rush it. I think they're 27th right now in terms of frequency.
Yeah, but the Nets are also, and I'm sure you know this off the top of your head, where are the Nets in frequency of threes? They
got to be at the top. Yeah, they're playing fast and shooting early. Well, I'm sure they're an early shot clock team as well.
So, well, maybe they are, but it's opponent offense shooting frequency. They're only 16th. In frequency of threes, and you nailed it. They're bottom 10 and at the rim. But you know what they do shoot a lot of? They shoot a lot of short mid rangers, according to Cleaning the Glass. So that's interesting to me. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how they try to neutralize Mitch, because that's been the key. Let's close up by talking about you guys are 5-6. We're 5-5. By the time people listen to this, those records will change because you have a game. You have a game tomorrow. We have a game
against
tonight.
Denver.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys faced.
How do they look?
They looked.
Really?
They looked.
Jokic is gonna. I don't even want to think about what he's gonna do to this.
Well, I caught a little bit of shrapnel. I noticed on. Oh look, my daughter's making a guest appearance on the pod. This is, I think, her first pod debut. This is crazy.
There we are.
Yeah. I caught some shrapnel today because I sung Mitchell Robinson's praises in my newsletter today. Mm-hmm. Because I thought he did, like he said after the game, he's like, I didn't think Jokic, like it was that hard to guard Jokic. And I was like, I thought he was right. I thought he handled him with the exception of like a couple plays. So yeah, they look good. They look really good. Is this a rivalry yet? I feel like it's not, because I feel like for it to be a rivalry, people would be like gearing themselves up for, it's the first Knicks Nets game of the season. Like we have to, Jesus Christmas. We have to, like, we're, it's a big deal, and I'm sure it'll be on like the back pages of the papers on Wednesday morning. But I feel like Knicks fans, by and large, feel like they have their own shit to worry about. It sounds like the Nets and the Nets fans feel like they have their own shit to worry about.
Yeah.
Do you get a different sense than I'm getting, or is that pretty spot on?
No. I think for the most part, it's been two teams working pretty independently of each other, which I think is good. Like, I mean, we talked about what the Knicks are doing and the idea of kind of building up the way the Nets did, and then hopefully they do that successfully and build a real culture and just things that you can build off of that you can keep going forward. And I think that's where it ends, right? Like the Nets right now, really, I mean, the rivalries I'm looking at is like Boston. I think Golden State is still kind of like a little bit of a contentious point for obvious reasons.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
So those are the ones I'm really looking at as marquee matchups. I'm really excited about the Knicks Nets game just because of I think it's going to be a good test, but I don't know if that makes it a good
for you guys. It'll be a good test.
Both
God
teams. I think both teams.
Come back on this podcast anytime, man.
I think so. I mean, and look, and I mean, maybe it's because I've mentioned before, I'm not like this. I didn't exist in New York 3 years ago. So it's not like I'm a diehard Nets fan.
You're fair all across the. No, we've had. I could for anybody who doesn't know. I take it for granted that people know you, but for anybody who doesn't know, you're as fair as they come. So I
appreciate that. Well, but I also don't. My point is, I don't represent like the Nets community or Nets fans or anything like that because I just don't know. That side of it, like the emotional side of it, I don't get overly invested in. I want both of these teams to be good. I don't know if everybody feels that way, but I do. I'm like, both of these teams should be good. I hope the Knicks land in the playoffs. I hope they play each other in the first round. That'd be awesome. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I don't know if that's representative. I get excited when the Knicks play well.
I mean, I would like that because that would mean the Knicks would be, I'm assuming in not only will they have made the play-in game, but they will have won play-in game / games to advance into the playoff field because I sorry folks, I got news for you. The Nets ain't finishing in one of the 7 or 8 or whatever seeds.
They'll figure it out. Yeah.
I mean, I picked you guys to make the finals before the season, and I think Durant for my second or third. I think I picked Durant for my third place MVP. I think I went Luka, AD, Durant as my top 3 predictions for MVP, and Durant's obviously missed some time, so that might be a little tough for him. We'll see if he misses any more games here on in, but no, I mean, I just think I think when you look at them in comparison to the rest of the East, I still don't know who's beating you guys in a 7-game series if everybody's healthy, and I know when I say that. It already is not it is I can't say that because Dinwiddie's out, and so everybody's not gonna be healthy. But with those 2 guys, I just like who are they gonna walk into a series and be like, man, I don't know if we get this one.
Especially with the way the playoffs, it's just so much about self-creation and the way that like that side of it. I can sit here, I can pick on them for every little thing defensively and decisions and substitutions and timeouts or the lack thereof and whatever.
Yeah, but that's all bullshit. No, I mean,
it just doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't matter.
It's bullshit when it comes right down to it.
Yeah, it really does. And it's like, it's a talent driven league. So is it starting off great? No. Are they going to be fine? Probably. And there's ways for them to improve. I think they should. I think they should try to, improve on the fringes a little bit, because I think there are problems with this roster. I don't think it's, indicative of them not, making the finals or something like that. Because we said the same thing about the Lakers last year. we sat around and we said, oh, well, yeah, they don't have any 3-point shooting. I mean, they didn't really throughout the playoffs, and it just didn't matter.
Well, and the difference was they had a top 1 player and a top 5 player. The Nets have a top, I don't know, 3 player and a top 15, 12, 15. I don't know. When Kyrie's going, it's tough to peg him.
Top 12, I think, when he's going, like when he's really going, he's up there. He's way up there. And you can look at yourself in the mirror and kind of be like, oh, he's in that class, that Lillard, that Curry class when he's going. I don't think that's
when he's going.
I don't have much reservations about that at all. The problem is, it's just everything that has happened in his career in terms of him missing time with injuries, and then this just being a tough year for somebody like him who is so, again, not to harken back to this too much, but somebody who's so involved in the social justice piece of a lot of this. It's a tough time for him, and it's really hard to get a metronome and just kind of get a feel for where he is. So that side of it, I think I'm probably forgetting about a little too much, but
okay. No, but it's a long season, and
really, it could be really long.
Yeah.
Depends how many of these breaks we have.
It could be. I mean, it's funny you said it's a test. I think it's a test too, but I think it's a test more for the Knicks, and I think it's specifically going to be a test because I think Kevin Durant. If I was a betting man, I don't know what the over under is going to be on his points scored on Wednesday night, but I would take the over.
Well, he just dropped like 37 and they lost. Like, it's not like it hasn't, their issues are, I mean, it's funny. Like, you just look at the star power with this team and you say, okay, they're going to come in. Harris just dropped, I think, 41 2 games ago, and KD dropped, 37. Yeah. And they lost both those games. So,
and we saw Beal drop. Great. We saw Beal drop 60 against Philly, and they lost that game. I mean, like, scoring alone, but at the same time, when you're dealing with a team like the Knicks, who has failed to score 90 points in 4 of their 10 games, heading into Monday night, let's hope they beat best that number against Charlotte. Famous last words. If he puts up 40, it's like, okay, well, you're 4/9 of the way there to what you might need to do. We'll see. We're gonna have to end this with a prediction. Do you think the Nets win this game?
I think the Nets are about to win by 15. Well, that's it. I really do.
By 15.
It'll be a good test. But if they're going to wake up for any games of the next couple, it's going to be that Knicks game. I don't care what the organization says or what Nash says or what KD says or whoever says. Even though it may not be the rivalry that we want it to be, they're going to be looking at this and they're going to say, this is the other team in New York. They are. There's a good chance they get smoked tomorrow by Denver, just smoked. And then they show up the next day. That's what I would bet my money on, because I think Denver is going to be more problematic for them with the specific problems that the Nets have. The Knicks, their biggest thing right now is focus and is just rotating correctly and not over helping. I think those things will be shored up for a game that I do believe they're going to show up for.
I think the Knicks will show up too.
Okay.
I think it will be a close game in the fourth quarter, mostly because every game has been not a close game necessarily in the fourth quarter, but they have entered every fourth quarter with a chance to win. And they've actually won several of them. So I didn't say I was going to make a prediction, so I'm not.
That's not fair.
No, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a close game. I have way too much respect for KD. So we'll see what happens. Matt, this was phenomenal. Thank you for getting into some thorny issues, and I appreciate you being genuine and honest with this stuff, because I think people are curious about it, and it's an interesting time all around. Can you please let folks know where they could find you and your stuff?
Just follow me on Twitter. I mean, it's all there. I don't I don't want to give you guys like a whole MLA formatted bibliography of my stuff. Just follow me on Twitter. It's all there.
If you wanted to, that would be allowed. I wouldn't tell you not to.
Maybe not the best podcast segment, but yeah, just follow me there. I've been doing more video work this year, which has been really fun. If you don't know already, I do a lot of film stuff for Nets Daily. So that's kind of what I focus on, is just the sort of on-court product and what it's looking like, which has been a mixed bag this year. But yeah, so I do a bunch of written work like that. And then I've been doing a bunch of video work as well. And it's all on Twitter. And
that Twitter account is
Matt Brooks,
NBA.
Yeah.
Very original, like me.
Classic.
You gotta get the NBA at the end there. Otherwise, how would people?
They wouldn't know. What am I? I could be for cricket. Who knows? I had to specify.
Oh man! Of course, we're both delirious by the end of this podcast. That's the kind of year that it's been.